Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Scraps and Locos of Britain. Each week we'll take a look at a class of locomotives that didn't make it into preservation. All of these classes will be standard gauge and owned by either a pre-grouping railway company, one of the big four railway companies, and or British Railways. While some classes will get a new build number, most of these classes will be scrapped and likely remain scrapped. Here we go. Our next episode is from the London and North Western Railway George V 440s. At the turn of the century, the London and North Western Railway's primary express locomotives were 240s, double single compounds, and 440 compounds designed by Francis Webb. The 240s worked well, but were starting to struggle with the demands being placed upon them and were due for replacement. The compounds, by contrast, were difficult and expensive to maintain, with the double singles also being poor hill climbers. The compound 440s had the power and the adhesion, but were heavy at the front, expensive to maintain, and had a high coal and water consumption. Webb retired in 1903 and was succeeded by George Whale. His first design for the LNWR was a simple expansion, inside cylinder 440 with 6-foot 9-inch driving wheels, known as the precursors. The design was an enlarged version of Webb's improved President class of 1887, but with larger cylinders and a higher boiler pressure at 175 pounds per square inch. When compared with the older Webb designs, the precursors were found to be easier to run and maintain. Their only issue, however, was a high coal consumption. Other than that, the class proved to be very capable machines. In 1909, Whale retired and was succeeded by Charles Bowen-Cooke. He set about looking at ways to improve Whale's designs, most notably through the use of superheating. After noticing the performance of the precursors, Cooke decided to produce a locomotive with greater power, speed, and efficiency. In June 1910, Cooke introduced two prototypes, number 2663 George V, which was fitted with a Schmidt superheater, and number 2664 Queen Mary, which was saturated. Initial tests revealed that George V steamed much more freely and burned less coal because of the superheater. To confirm this, Cooke ordered 9 more members of the Mary class and 9 more members of the George class from Crewe. These appeared between October 1910 and January 1911. After 3 months of testing, Cooke could officially say that the Georges were a superior design. As a result, 40 more Georges were ordered from Crewe and appeared between April and October 1911. Then, between January and May 1913, 20 more Georges were constructed and outshopped from Crewe. That June, Queen Mary was rebuilt with a Schmidt superheater. She was followed by number 1550 Westminster that September, and number 2271 J.P. Bickersmith that November. By the start of the First World War, only 3 of the Marys were left. The last of these to be rebuilt was number 2512 Thomas Houghton in October 1914. The final 10 Georges appeared between May and July 1915, bringing the class total up to 90 locomotives. With a 180 psi boiler, 20 by 26 inch inside cylinders, and 6-foot 9-inch driving wheels, the Georges could develop 19,644 pounds of tractive effort. In later years, the cylinder diameter was increased by ½ an inch. This brought the tractive effort up to 20,639 pounds. The Georges proved to be very reliable and easy to maintain, as well as being very efficient, and were considered by many to be some of, if not the best, 440s in Britain. Although the class took the names and numbers from older locomotives that were being withdrawn, or had been withdrawn, as was common practice on the LNWR, the names on the class did have some continuous themes. As already mentioned, the The first two members were respectively named after the newly coronated king and queen. One was named Coronation, and some were named after nobles. Others were named after inventors, authors, hunting dog breeds, countries of the empire, birds, warships, LNWR directors, and destinations served by the LNWR. In 1913, the Georges were superseded by the Prince of Wales class and Claughton 460s. Although the latter two classes had a few teething troubles, the Georges also had a few issues. Arguably, the most tragic event involving a George occurred on the 14th of August, 1915. Number 1489 Wolfhound was hauling the 845 Birmingham to Euston Express when its right-hand coupling rod came off of its crank pin after a pin and washer holding the rod in place came off. The loose coupling rod was dragged along the ballast and hit a sleeper on the adjacent line, damaging the track. Moments later, the 8:30 15-coach Irish mail from Euston to Holyhead, hauled by improved president number 1189 Stewart and renowned class number 1971 Euryalus, hit the damaged track at about 60 miles an hour. Both locomotives and all 15 coaches derailed. Some of the coaches rolled down the embankment, whilst others telescoped into one another. 10 people were killed in the accident, and a further 21 were injured. Thankfully, though, all 3 locomotives were repaired and put back into service. The only other issue was that the joy valve gear used on the locomotives could result in a hammer blow to the track. Despite this issue, the class could still give a smooth ride and perform quickly and efficiently. All of the Georges survived into LMS days, being renumbered 5320 to 5409. Unfortunately, the Georges and precursors were downgraded to secondary work as the Midland compounds came into the picture. The Georges continued to be used on express trains and other passenger work, but would often need to double head because express trains on the LMS were heavier than those on the LNWR. Later replaced by the Royal Scots and Patriots, the first withdrawal was number 5345 Foxhound in December 1933. The remaining 89 members had a 2 put in front of their numbers to give their old road numbers to the Black Fives. In later years, some of the names of the Georges were removed and reused on the Jubilees and the Patriots. By 1940, only 3 of the Georges were left, these being numbers 25321 Lord Locke, 25350, and 25373 Ptarmigan. All 3 made it into BR days, with Lord Locke being withdrawn first in February 1948. Number 25350 and Ptarmigan were to be renumbered 58011 and 58012, but both locomotives were withdrawn in May and never received their BR numbers. None were preserved, but in 2011, the LNWR George V Locomotive Trust was formed. The trust initially wanted to build a precursor, but the George V was chosen instead because it was essentially Bowen-Cooke's take on the precursors. The George V's were also easier and cheaper to build and maintain. The locomotive will carry the number 2013 and be named Prince George to celebrate the son of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. At the time of writing, the smokebox, front end, splashers, and cab have all been completed. The locomotive is expected to be completed and run by 2023, when Prince George turns 10 years old. This series is inspired by Locomotives of Great Britain by Rail Air Land and Sea and Top 10 Extinct British Steam Locomotives by Pendennis Castle. Links to both their channels and the LNWR George V Locomotive Trust will be in the description below. As always, if you have any locomotive classes you would like me to discuss, let me know in the comment box below. If you want to see more videos like this, then feel free to subscribe. Tune in next week when I discuss the Great Central 8B Atlantic. Take care, everyone. Goodbye for now.